Imagine two men standing at the starting line of the same race. The first one makes $10,000 a month. His life looks impressive from a distance. A polished house in a neighborhood that signals success. A shiny car sitting in the driveway. Weekend meals in places where the menus don't show prices. He looks like he is winning, but behind the scenes he is drowning. The credit card bills hit every 30 days. The car payment eats a chunk of his paycheck. The mortgage owns him more than he owns the house. He lies awake some nights staring at the ceiling, praying his boss never gets annoyed enough to fire him. Because if that happens, his whole lifestyle collapses overnight. The second man earns half as much. He lives in a simple home, drives a car that doesn't impress anyone, cooks his own meals most nights. He doesn't post anything flashy online. He doesn't look rich, but he has something the first man secretly envies. Cash in the bank, investments growing quietly. Freedom to turn down a toxic client or walk away from a job that crosses his boundaries. His life isn't loud, but it's stable. And stability, when compounded over time, becomes power. Here is the uncomfortable truth we rarely say out loud. The man who earns more often ends up poorer. The man who earns less often ends up richer, not because the world is unfair, but because they are playing two different games. One is chasing a lifestyle, the other is building wealth. So the real question is not, how much do you make, but how much do you need? Because the moment your lifestyle grows faster than your income, you are no longer building wealth. You are feeding a machine that never stops asking for more. This is the paradox. Men who need more fall into a trap of working harder just to stay in place. Men who need less quietly move ahead year after year because they have room to save, invest, and breathe. And no one understood this better than Charlie Munger, a billionaire who lived for 70 years in the same modest house. A man who hated debt, hated financial stupidity, and believed that living simply was not an act of sacrifice, but a strategy for independence. So the question becomes unavoidable. What if the fastest path to building more wealth is needing less of it before we go any further? We need to answer one question that almost no one stops to ask. What is money actually for? Most people never figure this out. They chase a number, a lifestyle, a perception. They move from one upgrade to the next, believing that more spending equals more living. But if you study the men who actually built lasting wealth, you will find something surprising. Their definition of money is completely different. Charlie Munger put it in the simplest, coldest way possible. The point of becoming wealthy is so you do not have to tolerate the people or situations you genuinely do not respect. In other words, money is not for showing off. Money is for walking away. There are two kinds of rich men in this world. The first wants to look rich. He buys the house that proves he made it. He buys the car that signals he is above the crowd. He buys the vacations, the clothing, the luxury, everything. But all of it comes with a price. He becomes a prisoner of the very image he carefully built. The second wants to be free. He uses money as insulation, not decoration. He buys optionality, not admiration. His wealth is quiet, invisible, and powerful. He does not need to impress anyone because his life is already his. Munger belonged to the second category. He believed that wealth was never about accumulation. It was about independence. And here is where the paradox begins. If the real purpose of money is independence, not consumption, then the man who needs less will reach freedom long before the man who needs more. The less you need, the sooner you are untouchable. Once you understand that independence is the real goal, the next question becomes painfully practical. If two men earn different incomes, why does the man who earns less often get ahead? The answer is not motivational. It is mathematical. Imagine two simple numbers. Man E earns $10,000 a month. He needs $9,500 to maintain the lifestyle he has built. That leaves him with $500. Man B earns $5,000 a month. He needs $2,000 to live comfortably. That leaves him with $3,000. At the end of 1 year, A saves $6,000. B saves $36,000 at the end of 5 years. A has a small cushion. D has a foundation. After a decade, A is still running. B owns asset stability and time. This is the part most people never grasp. Wealth has almost nothing to do with income. Wealth is built from the gap between what you earn and what you need. Charlie Munger understood this so deeply that he had one rule he repeated for decades. The first $100,000 is the hardest money you will ever make. It feels impossible when you start. It feels slow, frustrating, and unfair, but you must get there, no matter what it takes. Why was he so obsessed with the first 100,000? Because that is the point where compounding finally wakes up. That is the point where saving stops feeling like punishment and starts acting like momentum. But you cannot reach that point if your lifestyle expands as fast as your income. You cannot compound money that you never keep. Man A, who needs almost all of what he earns, traps himself in a cycle where compounding is powerless. Man B, who needs far less than he earns, gives compounding something to work with. And once compounding begins, it does not care who earned more. It only cares who kept more. So the uncomfortable question returns to you. Are you working for wealth, or are you working to fund a lifestyle someone else convinced you to want? If this is your first time here, ThinkMate is where we question what others accept. That's the kind of mind we build this channel for. Subscribe if you want more. Now back to it. There is a part of the wealth equation that most men ignore until it is too late. We talk endlessly about earning more and investing more, but we rarely talk about the force that destroys wealth faster than any market crash or bad investment. Negative compounding. Charlie Munger warned about this long before the internet turned it into a slogan. He said that compounding works both ways. When it works for you, it is a miracle. When it works against you, it is a monster. Look at how the average modern man lives. He wants the upgraded apartment because he believes he deserves it. He wants the new car because everyone around him just bought one. He wants the vacation, the watch, the remodeled kitchen, the premium everything. He wants to feel rich today, even if it means borrowing tomorrow. And so the bills begin to stack. A credit card with a balance that never fully goes away. A car loan that bleeds interest every single month. A home renovation financed at a rate he barely understands. A lifestyle built on payments instead of ownership. What he does not see is the compounding happening behind the scenes. 20% interest on a credit card's not a number. It is a slow execution. It is the silent transfer of future freedom into present-day ego. Munger hated this kind of financial behavior because he understood its true cost. Men do not go broke because they are stupid. They go broke because they try to look rich before they are rich. They let debt compound faster than their discipline. And here is where the paradox reveals its teeth. The man who needs more money to maintain his image is the man most likely to sabotage his financial future. He cannot save enough. He cannot wait long enough. He cannot invest consistently enough. Every dollar he earns already has a job, and none of those jobs are building wealth. The man who needs less avoids this entire battlefield. He is not fighting interest. He is not juggling overdue bills. He is not financing a lifestyle he cannot truly afford. He stays light. He stays flexible. He stays free. Munger once said that he and Buffett succeeded not because they were unusually brilliant, but because they managed to avoid the big, stupid mistakes that ruin most people. Living simply was not an aesthetic choice. It was a shield against self-destruction. So ask yourself, is your money compounding for you, or is your lifestyle compounding against you? If negative compounding is the monster that eats a man's financial future, envy is the whisper that invites the monster in. Charlie Munger had a brutal way of describing envy. He He called it the dumbest of all human emotions, because it never brings pleasure, only pain. You gain nothing by feeling it. Yet it has the power to make you sabotage your entire life. And nowhere does envy do more damage than in a man's financial decisions. Look at how men compare themselves to each other, not quietly, not rationally, but constantly. He sees a coworker buy a nicer car, and suddenly his own car feels inadequate. He visits a friend's new house and walks back into his own home feeling small. He scrolls through social media and starts believing everyone else has cracked the code except him. This is how status infects a man, not through desire but through comparison. Most men do not buy things because they want them. They buy things because they cannot tolerate the feeling of being one step behind. They stretch their budgets, drain their savings, and sign their names on loans they cannot comfortably repay, all to defend a version of themselves that never existed. This is where the psychological trap closes. Needing more becomes part of identity. The man starts to think, I am the guy who lives like this. I am the guy who drives this. I am the guy who can afford that. And once identity enters the picture, the spending is no longer optional. He must keep feeding the lifestyle, even when it is killing him. But here is what Munger understood, long before behavioral economists put names to these patterns. The man who needs less is not just saving money. He is escaping a psychological prison. A man who needs little has nothing to prove. He does not have to signal his worth. He does not measure himself by the house next door or the car parked across the street, because his self-respect does not come from possessions. It comes from discipline, clarity, and independence. And once you stop playing the status game, something incredible happens. Your expenses drop, your anxiety drops, your envy evaporates, your capacity to build wealth expands. The truth is simple but not easy to swallow. Most men are not financially trapped by external forces. They are trapped by their own pride. So ask yourself honestly, are you spending to improve your life, or are you spending to avoid feeling inferior to someone who might be drowning just as quietly as you? There is another cost to needing too much that most men never notice. It is not written on a credit card statement. It does not show up in your monthly budget. It shows up in your mind. Charlie Munger believed that the greatest advantage any man could have was not a high income or a lucky break, but a clear head. He called lifelong learning a moral duty, not because it makes you clever, but because it protects you from your own ignorance. But here is what Munger also understood. You cannot think clearly when your life is too loud. Modern men carry an invisible burden, bills scattered across different accounts, payments due at different times, subscriptions they forgot they had, loans they barely keep up with, a lifestyle filled with obligations, upgrades, and distractions that demand constant attention. Every one of those decisions consumes cognitive bandwidth, a small slice of mental energy here, a bit of stress there, a constant hum of anxiety in the background. And when your mind is cluttered with financial noise, you lose the ability to make good long-term decisions. You stop reading, you stop thinking deeply. You stop noticing opportunities because your mind is too exhausted from trying to keep up with the life you built. This is why two men with the same IQ and the same job can end up in completely different financial realities. One has the bandwidth to think, to plan, to learn, to compound his judgment. The other is mentally underwater, drained by a lifestyle that eats his attention day after day. The man who needs less has an unfair advantage. His life is quiet, his bills are simple, his obligations are minimal. His mind is not weighed down by clutter. And when the mind is free, it does what it is designed to do. It sees patterns, it connects ideas. It evaluates risks clearly. It invests with patience instead of panic. Munger knew this. He built an empire not by rushing, but by thinking, not by chasing complexity, but by reducing the noise until only clarity remained. So ask yourself, is your lifestyle sharpening your judgment, Or is it slowly numbing it? If you want proof that needing less can build extraordinary wealth, you do not need a theory. You only need to look at the man who mastered the game. Charlie Munger was a billionaire. But he did not live like the idea of a billionaire that modern culture sells you. Number fleets of luxury cars, no mansions stacked across continents, no lifestyle built to impress anyone. Instead, he lived in the same modest house for more than 70 years. Think about that for a moment. While friends and associates upgraded their homes 10 times over, each one bigger than the last, each renovation more extravagant, each purchase meant to signal success, Munger stayed exactly where he was, not because he could not afford more, but because he understood the hidden cost of living. Like you are rich, large homes come with large expectations, more space to fill more maintenance, more staff, more social comparison, more pressure to keep climbing, even when you are tired of the climb. Munger saw the pattern early. He watched people expand their lifestyles with every raise and every bonus, only to end up more stressed, less free, and no happier than before. And he refused to let his life turn into a stage play for other people's approval. He also understood something deeper. When you raise your lifestyle, you raise your children's expectations. He once said that he did not want his kids to grow up thinking comfort was guaranteed, or that wealth existed so they could avoid responsibility. Keeping life simple was not just a financial decision. It was a moral one, and the result of that simplicity is visible in everything he built. His financial discipline stayed intact. His mind stayed sharp, his judgment stayed calm. He made decisions from a place of strength, not from the panic of maintaining an image while others were busy upgrading their surroundings. Munger was upgrading his thinking. While others were chasing appearances, he was compounding quietly. While others sought admiration, he sought independence. There is something powerful about a billionaire who never felt the need to prove it, because wealth that does not need to be displayed is wealth that cannot be taken from you. So look at your own life and ask yourself the question Munger answered decades ago. Do you want a life that looks wealthy, or a life that actually is? There is a belief that becoming wealthy requires brilliance, a genius idea, a perfect strategy, some rare insight only a few chosen men can see. Charlie Munger never believed that. In fact, he said something so simple and so counterintuitive that most people ignore it. He said that he and Warren Buffett built their fortune, not by being exceptionally smart, but by consistently avoiding the big, stupid mistakes that ruin most people. This idea is the core of Munger's philosophy inversion. Instead of asking, how do I get rich? Ask what will almost guarantee that I never do. And when you invert the question, the map becomes painfully clear. There are predictable ways men destroy their wealth: living above their income, taking on debt with high interest, investing like gamblers instead of owners, chasing quick money to fund a lifestyle they cannot afford, copying the spending habits of people who are also secretly drowning, letting pride push them into financial obligations their future selves cannot carry. These are not mysteries, they are patterns. And most men fall into them, not because they are stupid, but because they need too much. When you need a bigger house to feel successful, you borrow when you need a nicer car to feel respected. You finance when you need to look wealthier than you are. You take risks you should never take. And when your lifestyle depends on maintaining an image, every financial decision becomes emotional instead of rational. This is how wealth dies. Not in one dramatic explosion, but in slow, predictable decay. Now look at the man who needs less. He does not need to impress anyone. He does not need to gamble to keep up. He does not need to take risks that could wipe him out. He does not need to chase every new opportunity because he is not trying to escape the pressure of his lifestyle, because his life is light. His decisions are clear because his expenses are low. His patience is long because his pride does not control him. Neither does fear. He is free to choose the slow strategy, the boring strategy, the strategy that actually works. Saving consistently, investing consistently, letting compounding do the heavy lifting. And here is the part most men never realize. Until it's too late when you need less. You also recover faster. A job loss does not break you. A bad investment does not end you. A recession does not send you into panic. Your downside is small, and your upside compounds over time. This is the Munger way: wealth not built by brilliance, but by the absence of self-destruction. Wealth built by refusing to go where ruin lives. Wealth built by stepping out of the traps that catch almost everyone else. So ask yourself the inversion question, the way Munger would. What if the real secret to wealth is not doing more, but removing everything that quietly kills it? What if needing less is not just a lifestyle choice, but the safest and most powerful investment strategy a man can have? By now, it is clear that needing less makes you wealthier in every practical way. But there is a deeper layer to this idea that most financial advice never touches. For Charlie Munger, living below your means was not just a smart strategy. It was a moral responsibility. He believed that wisdom was a duty every man owed to himself and to the people who depended on him. Because when a man makes reckless financial decisions, the consequences do not fall on him alone. They fall on his partner, his children, his aging parents, anyone whose life is tied to his stability. Think about what happens when a man lives beyond his means. He takes on debt he cannot control. He spends to impress people who are not thinking about him. He stretches himself thin to maintain a lifestyle designed for admiration, not sustainability, and when everything collapses, he is not the only one who pays the price. This is why Munger's philosophy cuts deeper than minimalism or frugality. He saw financial discipline as a form of character. A man who needs less is not running from responsibility. He is preparing for it when you need less. You build a cushion that protects the people you care about. You create stability in a world built on uncertainty. You become harder to break, which means the people around you become harder to harm. And slowly the definition of wealth shifts. It becomes less about the size of your house and more about the strength of your foundation. Less about the balance in your account and more about the calm in your mind. Less about the things you can buy and more about the lives you can support without fear. So look at your own definition of wealth. Is it built on spectacle or on security? Is it built on wanting more or on protecting what truly matters? Because at some point, every man learns the truth Munger lived by. Wealth is not what you flaunt. Wealth is what you can survive. When you strip away all the noise, all the comparison, and all the illusions about wealth, every man eventually faces the same crossroads. Which version of himself will he become? The first type of man earns well, but he needs even more. His lifestyle owns him. Every raise disappears before he feels it. Every month becomes a scramble to keep the illusion alive. He looks successful from a distance, but up close, he is one unexpected bill away from collapse. The second type of man swings to the opposite extreme. He fears money, he plays small. He avoids risk, avoids growth, avoids ambition, he survives. But he never builds, he is safe. But his life is tight, narrow, and fragile in its own way. Then there is the third type, the Munger type. He earns. He learns, he grows. But he never lets his needs outrun his capabilities. He keeps his lifestyle below his income, not because he is cheap, but because he values freedom more than appearances. The gap becomes capital, capital becomes compounding. Compounding becomes independence. And independence becomes the quiet foundation of a life that cannot be shaken. This is the man who builds real wealth, not loud wealth, not performative wealth, but durable, peaceful, unshakable wealth. So here is the question only you can answer. Are you living to look rich or to become free? Try spending 1 year needing less than you think you do. 1 year lowering the noise and raising your clarity. If you do, you may discover what Charlie Munger already knew. The less you need, the more your life finally belongs to you. If this made you see the world a little clearer, stay. Think deeper. This is ThinkMate.